Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're doing a philosophical deep dive into what we're calling the architecture of fear. Now, to really unpack this grim Gothic fable of systemic decay, I want you to picture me as a sort of historian bard. Imagine I'm strumming a lute made of dull lead, tuning up to sing you a dark parable about how empires actually maintain their suffocating grip on power. It's a heavy concept for sure, but it is absolutely fascinating. Let's get into it. Our tale begins high up in the vaulted royal halls. At first glance, everything is stunning, right? But the gold leaf and velvet up here are specifically designed to mask the kingdom's true architectural bones. The dazzling wealth and all those refined myths of the court, they're just a beautiful, fragile illusion. And they exist solely to hide a much grimmer structural reality that's festering right beneath the floorboards.
It's really a tale of two worlds. Up top, you have this conscious illusion dancing away, completely woven with festival lights and celebration. Yet, just below the surface, the repressed reality is lying in wait. We're talking stained blueprints and walls of exclusion and fear. And here's the kicker. This world as it is doesn't just exist by chance. It actively and maliciously masks its own prejudiced foundations right beneath that shiny veneer of high society. Now, let's step into the shadows and meet the High Inquisitor. This is a man whose very heart is a fortress of fear. Picture him standing there, his trembling finger tracing the edges of a tattered, forbidden ledger. This isn't just some ordinary book, you guys. To the Inquisitor, this is a terrifying vessel of chaotic becoming that has somehow breached his supposedly impenetrable walls. The king leans in close. Imagine his royal jewels jingling with this metallic, almost mocking rhythm, like a condemned man's chains. He asks a question that strikes right at the absolute core of their power. Does this ledger hold the fire of imagination, or merely the bitter fertilizer of our own repressed history? It's a chilling thought. And the Inquisitor? He just spits out this venomous reply. He calls it a messy design that dares to imagine a world as it could be, a vibrant branch that hasn't yet been pruned. But beneath all that anger, there is sheer, unadulterated terror. He's looking at the blueprint of a chaotic future, and he knows it threatens the rigid lines of his entire reality. So this is the ultimate war. On one side, you have the volatile chaos of the creative spark, shifting and expanding like cracked glass, and it's violently crashing against the rigid state, which relies entirely on iron shackles and heavy masonry. It's literally the fluid potential of human imagination fighting against a state that possesses an obsessive need to wall an existence itself. To really understand the depth of their fear, we have to look at their ultimate destination. They call it the skeletal belly of the earth. Think of this as the damp catacombs of the unconscious mind. These are the deep, repressed layers where the architecture of fear reaches its final, rigid conclusion. It's essentially a psychological graveyard where high society goes to bury its rejected scraps. Outside these ancestral vaults, the state's enforcers actually start to falter. You have these three Inquisitor knights standing completely frozen in a suffocating mist of guilt and fear. As they stare into the shifting, unformed ink of that forbidden ledger, the very history they've sworn to protect dissolves. It turns into this crushing psychological weight pressing right against their lungs. What follows is a desperate struggle to somehow wall in this intoxicating nectar of chaos. First, the Jester Knight tries to spring a narcissistic trap, that totally fails. Then, the Shadow Knight steps up, desperately trying to apply heavy masonry, using a hidden trowel. But get this, the stone itself betrays them. It literally crumbles to ash in the face of that undeniable fire of imagination. You can imagine the knights exchanging these grim, terrified looks. They realize that this poison of dissent isn't just some dull lead they can easily transmute and forget about. No, this is a force expanding right before their eyes, threatening to dissolve the very foundations of their darkest masonry. The ancestral vaults themselves are suddenly at risk. So to survive, the guardians of the status quo have to flee the light. This starts an allegorical descent. Think about the timeline here. From the bright carnival streets, hours passed, plunging down through that suffocating mist, entering the damp catacombs of the present, and moving relentlessly toward the ultimate destination, the ancestral vaults of the future. It is a terrifying plunge.
Down in this pitch-black recess, the environment itself becomes an oppressive weapon. The air is thick with ancient dust and the scent of that bitter fertilizer, literally the worthless scraps of slighted lives, nourishing twisted roots. Down here, the thorns of the past aren't just memories. They manifest as an overwhelming physical weight on the chest, specifically designed to suffocate the breath of any dreamer. And who tends to this incredibly dark ecosystem? Enter the Bard Knight. He acts as this perverted gardener, systematically pruning the dead wood of hope. He actually weaponizes memory itself, turning the listener's own history into a cage. His entire job is to ensure that no vibrant branch can ever grow and disturb the rigid stability of these excluded souls. Now, this is crucial. The true horror here isn't found in pure destruction, but in violent integration. The state takes that vibrant branch of chaotic becoming and it forcefully grafts it onto the twisted roots of the past. It permanently binds the world as it could be to the heavy masonry of what already is. It stops new growth dead in its tracks before it can ever seek the sun. Finally, we reach the dark heart of the catacombs, the site of structural conclusion. This is where the rough sketch of a life, that heroic silhouette promised by the ledger, meets its horrifying end. Because the state absolutely cannot allow that silhouette to take form, it prepares to entomb it alive, locking it within the architectural bones of the earth forever. This right here is the soul's darkest masonry. It's a grim alchemical inversion where the vibrant fire of imagination is brutally extinguished by the cold reality of iron shackles. The spark of creative potential isn't just put out, it is transmuted into dead weight. That ensures the promise of change is locked away in the dark permanently. So what is the point of all this? It serves one ultimate chilling design: stone silence. The high priest and the inquisitor drag the bloated superego down into these catacombs for the absolute, terrifying quiet of a permanent tomb. They are constructing a world where every piece of dissent is completely walled in by the hidden trowel of a venomous grudge. As the iron gates of the inquisitorial temple groan shut, the state claims its victory. The rigid structures of the world as it is remain completely unchallenged. But of course, the price of that victory is the soul's absolute defeat. The world as it could be is immobilized, and the true, brilliant potential of the people is buried in the dark. And so, our historian Bard's song fades out, leaving us with just an echo at a really important question. Think about this. Are the vaulted halls of your world built upon the volatile fire of imagination, or do they rest on the stone silence of a skeletal belly? Look beneath the gold leaf and velvet of your own society. Examine those stained blueprints. Keep questioning the walls around you before they enclose you. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I'll see you next time.